Hello fellow collectors, I hope you are doing very well indeed. Today I continue with my ongoing series where I'll talk about the best films I watched in the preceding month, and today we're taking a look at my March in film. It was definitely a quieter month for me film-wise, as it was just quite busy elsewhere. I just didn't have as much time to get to as many films as I would have liked to, so it'll be a bit of a shorter video than usual today. One wonderful thing which happened in March, which is sort of film adjacent, was that I went to see the Back to the Future musical currently playing in London, and my goodness, it was glorious. My brother very generously bought me a ticket, and so I went along with him and his family, and everyone from the adults to the kids, we all just had a blast watching it. It was so much fun. The costumes, the props, the set design, the special effects and the songs, it was all just done so wonderfully with such love for the original film. I can highly recommend it if you get a chance to go and see it. Of course, the pleasure of watching that then spurred me on to want to revisit the trilogy again for the first time in many years. I can't actually remember the last time I saw them, but I had an enormous amount of fun going through the films again. Last year I actually picked up this mammoth box set of the Back to the Future trilogy from HD Zeta, and it had just been sat there waiting for the perfect time for me to dive in again, which of course came shortly after I watched the musical. As we've all seen these films so many times, I won't talk about them in any more depth later in this video, but for me, suffice it to say the first and the third would definitely be among the best films I watched in March. And even though the second I think is perhaps the weakest entry, there's still so much adventure to enjoy in that one as well. And so, without any further ado, let's talk about the best films I watched in March. First up, and we have Mississippi Mermaid, a film from 1969 and directed by the great Francois Truffaut and starring a superb cast boasting the eternally beautiful Catherine Deneuve and the very suave Jean-Paul Belmondo, both of course legendary French actors who shine together here. This was not at all what I was expecting, which I had thought was going to be a fairly regular romantic drama, but what it turned out to be was just brilliant. It literally made me chuckle at a certain point with eager suspense as I was thinking, what on earth is going on? What nefarious schemes are being enacted here? The film starts with plenty of intrigue as Belmondo is playing a rich man who owns a tobacco plantation, and he lives on a small island off the coast of Madagascar. And he's met a woman through sending letters, and they've even gotten engaged without ever having seen each other in person. Right away you are curious, and right away you are given reason to think perhaps not everything is quite as it seems, and the stage is set for this film to take off, which it really does. There is a great element of suspicion, like a brilliant Hitchcock thriller, which I think is what Truffaut was aiming at here, and he pulls it off expertly, of course as well adding his own exquisite filmic flair. We have elements of crime, elements of a chase film, elements of magnetic attraction between our two main characters, and that's whether they want it or not to a certain extent. There is definitely a fight, then make up, then fight again pattern at play between them. One particularly interesting thing to me was that neither character is all that likeable. I always think it takes a special sort of film to use unlikable characters and overcome that to still manage to get you invested, and my goodness was I invested here. I have a lot more to say about this one, but I really don't want to spoil it. I think it's better to go in fairly blind, so I won't go into any more of the plot. Suffice to say that Deneuve is radiant as usual and plays her character with a great air of mystery, and even when she reveals things, you still get the sense that it's only one layer of many. She is a woman torn between worlds and between desires, while Belmondo is of course also brilliant here, playing with this air of inevitability and a single-mindedness. The chemistry between them is superb, and there is actually quite a powerful core of passionate, unrepentant and unrelenting romantic love that I think underpins the whole story. In a way perfectly summed up by a line that Deneuve's character says, which is, "No woman deserves to be loved like this." And once she says it, it feels like a ton of bricks has been dropped on you. My only issue was the ending, which I thought was a little lackluster, but overall this was absolutely excellent and riveting to watch. It was recently on sale for a 2 for £22 at HMV, and at that price this is a steal. If you enjoy Truffaut's other films, then my goodness, are you in for a treat here. Up next, and it's The Magnificent Seven. From 1960 and directed by John Sturges, it stars Yul Brynner, Steve McQueen, Eli Wallach, James Coburn, Charles Bronson, Horst Buchholz, Robert Vaughn and Brad Dexter. An incredible cast for this one, and they all bounced off each other brilliantly. Like so many of us, I think Seven Samurai is simply incredible. Of course, one of the greatest films ever made. It's been some years since I watched it, but I remember being so deeply moved by it, and I look forward to rewatching it soon in 4K one of these days. The Magnificent Seven is of course the American remake that happened 6 years afterwards, and certainly also has quite the reputation of being a great adaptation, so I was really looking forward to it. For some reason though, there is no 4K release of this in the UK, so I imported this Shout Factory edition from the States. I am delighted to report that I thought this was fantastic, and it also really moved me. It has plenty of rousing and unbridled courage in the face of adversity, so much so that it even brought a tear to my eye. There is heartbreaking betrayal, heart-pounding action, we have romantic tension, brotherly bonding, and it's just a great ride of a film. The introduction I thought also was particularly excellent, as two of our main characters, played by Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen, just strangers, coincidentally join forces to see a person buried, that others in the little town they are in are dead set against being buried there. So they volunteer to protect the hearse, or the carriage that is passing as a hearse. It's almost like they are playing a game. They do it for the sheer thrill of it. They know there is danger, trouble, threat of death, but they are clearly bold and courageous and very sure of their gunfighting skills. Even though they have no horse in this race, so to speak, both just passing through the town they're in, they didn't know the dead guy at all, but they are up for taking down some people they don't agree with. Is it a moral decision? Well, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe that played a small part, but it's certainly also because of the thrill and because it's there and they can. It's the perfect introduction to who these two people are, and you know everything you need to know about them straight away. Brynner is stoic, moral and fierce, while McQueen is more quick and reactionary, but also cool, calm and collected in doing so. They make a great duo and bounce off each other so well. The rest of the seven also work perfectly well here, and really showing the strength of the characters in the story to translate so well from being samurai into western gunfighters without losing much character depth. They have a wonderful camaraderie, and their performances really draw you in and make you care about these people. And of course Eli Wallach is wonderful as the villain of the piece, a role he always plays so well. He's the leader of a gang and takes what he wants, and using whatever violent means to do it. But as you later find out, it's not quite so simple as him just being a bad person. It was also great to see Horst Buchholz in this. He isn't an actor I've been familiar with for very long, but just by chance he was in a hilarious Billy Wilder film I watched recently called 1, 2, 3 with James Cagney. I actually forgot to mention it in my Honourable Mentions list last month, but it's a great time and I highly recommend it. And of course it also stars Horst Buchholz, in a role that he looks like he's having a blast playing, so it was really fun to see him in this as well. Overall, it is a superb western that, while it runs not far off 100 minutes less than Seven Samurai, still manages to hit the right beats to engage you and get you invested about this small village that needs protecting from the murderous gang by these 7 brave men who decide to put their lives on the line. Great stuff and well worth the wait to watch. And then last but not least, we have The Last Days of Disco, a film from 1998 and directed by Whit Stillman. It stars Chloe Sevigny, Chris Eigerman, Kate Beckinsale, Matt Kiesler, Mackenzie Astin and Robert Sean Leonard. A few years ago I picked up Metropolitan, another of Whit Stillman's films, and the only one available on Criterion in the UK. However, it does come as part of a 3-film set in the US, along with Barcelona and this one, The Last Days of Disco. I had great fun watching Metropolitan, which I would liken to watching Fraser Crane in his early 20s when surrounded by a similar sort of people, bourgeois in the extreme, highly educated and with plenty of time to hang out and party. And since then I've been really keen to see Stillman's other 2 well-regarded films as well, and so I finally decided to import them. But as it turned out, it was actually cheaper to get the box set, which comes with all three, so I ended up doing that rather than just importing the two films on their own. Even though it's been probably closing in on 5 years now since I watched Metropolitan, I can say that The Last Days of Disco was well worth the wait because again I just had a great time with it. The dialogue is so sharp, witty, at times scathing, particularly from Beckinsale's character, and sometimes darkly hilarious. And it's full of pitch-perfect performances from our main cast, all playing these yuppie bourgeois pseudo-intellectual 20-somethings whose lives are revolving around their attendance at this exclusive nightclub which, as you might have guessed it, plays disco music. And the film takes us on a journey as we watch these people navigate their lives, loves and careers. We have a depressed assistant district attorney, a nightclub manager who is in denial about being a drug addict, saying in the most hilarious way, "I'm not an addict, I'm a habitual user," which had me cracking up. Add to that a recently fired ad man and two ladies in publishing trying to make their mark, and our formidable cast of characters is complete. But there is a depth to this film as well, and a serious side underneath the witty repartee that we get to enjoy. Particularly from Savini's character do we see some serious consequences to actions, some real life cause and effect, and it is quite impactful and moving. Savini has this almost Lauren Bacall-like glance that she's using where her face is angled slightly down and her eyes are up, and we feel like she is doing her best to learn from the worldly and wiser people around her, except the secret is no one is the wiser despite what they might say, and no one has any idea what they're doing. There is definitely a thread of peer pressure and looking up to people who talk a lot and seem to have things all figured out when, in actual fact, they're even more lost at sea than everyone else. And Savini's character trying hard to be this ideal of a modern woman that she thinks other people are, and that she is supposed to aspire to, really pays a price for her friend's garbage advice and outlook. But that all takes place around such hilarity as an in-depth discussion and dissection of the film The Lady and the Tramp, for example. Around such wonderful lines like, "Well, I don't know, we were exploited, but they were nice about it." And the balance is just perfectly struck between the light and the dark here. After watching both Metropolitan and Barcelona, both of which I thoroughly enjoyed, I think this one, The Last Days of Disco, might well be my favourite of Stillman's films, as it does have more to it than just being a well-written and very funny slice of life. There is that extra layer of commentary here that I think is really valuable. I know it of course focuses on a time, quite literally in the last days of disco music, it is easily applicable to today as well. Brilliant stuff. And moving on, we come to my on again off again section where I talk about the films that I've watched that I haven't quite made my mind upon yet. They might have been particularly curious or intriguing or mysterious in some way, but I just haven't been able to quite pin them down. And I have just one for this month, which is Time Regained, a film from 1999 and directed by Raul Ruiz. It stars Marcello Mazzarella, Emmanuel Beat, John Malkovich, Catherine Deneuve, Vincent Perez and even Chiara Mastroianni. Quite a phenomenal cast for this one. I'm just not sure what to make of it. At about 2.5 hours long, it was incredibly well paced and somehow engaging. I say somehow because I'm not really sure what happened or what I watched here. I think it's about the memories of a dying man who is an author, as he is desperately trying to finish one last book before he passes away. It is stunningly shot with camera work that is smooth and interesting with a fluid and beautiful style which makes it lovely to watch. I didn't really care at all about our main character though, nor any of his friends, nor the high upper class society he moves around in, and yet despite that it was just so watchable. I will say that there is nowhere near enough Catherine Deneuve nor Emmanuel Beat here for my taste, and they are the reason that I sought this one out really. It's a film which flows and flashes just like our memories do. If David Lynch is the master of dreamlike cinema, I think even though this is my first experience of a film by Raul Ruiz, I think he clearly is the master of showing memory through cinema. Sometimes we see short moments, sometimes long scenes which can be very vivid, and at other times it's just more like flashes. Of course, our memories can fade over time, as well as change and morph the real details, while other feelings or images can be so imprinted on our minds, but the surroundings themselves can fade. At other moments, scenes become more dreamlike, and more still, some memories are more of a feeling rather than moments we can actually recall. Astonishingly, and I have no idea how it was possible, but Ruiz manages to translate these onto screen, and it's incredibly impressive. And yet, at the end, because I didn't really care about our main character at all, this upper-class dandy, nor any of his acquaintances, friends, enemies or lovers, I was left feeling very impressed but slightly flat. There was just not much to grip onto here. And yet, as I say, I had no issues whatsoever getting through 160 odd minutes of this. I've certainly sat through 80-minute films that felt longer, that's for sure. So, an odd one, but intriguing. And just before I move on, I wanted to say that I would also have included the film Roma from 1972 and directed by Federico Fellini in this section as well, but I could not for the life of me tell you what it was about or even begin to explain it. I know that I really enjoyed it. There is some utter madness and mystery, such as a papal fashion show, for example. Not something I ever thought I'd see. It was a captivating and sprawling watch, and I certainly recommend it, but even immediately afterwards I could not have given much description of what I just watched, and even now I still can't. Definitely recommended though. And lastly then, that brings us on to my honourable mentions. First up is The Seahawk, which had been on my list to watch for the longest time, and recently Neil from Neil's Movie Channel mentioned it in a video which reignited my desire to watch it. A swashbuckling piratical tale with Errol Flynn looking like he is having an absolute blast. Next is Repulsion, which I watched because Catherine Deneuve is in it. An odd but captivating film with camera work that reminded me a little bit of a Wong Kar-wai sort of style. It has hints of Bartleby, the film, to it, and also sort of Requiem to a Dream, an odd mixture of a film, this one. And then Choice of Arms, another one with Deneuve, and also the legendary Yves Montand and Gerard Depardieu. I thoroughly enjoyed this one, a tale of crime and passion. And lastly, La Femme Nikita, a Luc Besson film I'd been keen to see for ages, and while it didn't quite live up to my expectations, was still pretty good. Well, that brings us to the end of the video and the end of my March in film. My goodness, how quickly that first quarter of the year has flown by. I hope your March was also wonderful and full of watching great movies. Well, that's everything from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.